Logan FROMME with the Backwoodsman's Institute. Today in this video, I'll be showing you how to make a ball starter out of a deer antler. Now, a ball starter is used in black powder shooting, specifically muzzleloaders. It's to help get the ball started down the barrel so you can use your ramrod with ease. Now, this is set up for a 50 caliber muzzleloader. If you have a smaller caliber or a larger caliber muzzleloader, you can adjust the items we're using right here to accommodate for the larger or the smaller caliber. Alright, we're going to be using the bottom portion of this antler right here. If you already use this in another project or something, you could use any part of this antler, but you want it to be somewhat thick because we're going to be drilling into it and inserting a dowel rod, and actually 2 dowel rods. So you want it to be as thick as you can. So I'm going to use the bottom because I like the gnarly look of it with all these nubs on here, but it's also the thickest part, so that's why we're going to use it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this bandsaw here, and I'm going to trim up where the antler attached to the skull plate. If you don't have a bandsaw, you could cut it off with a hacksaw. Alright, the next thing, I want to figure out where it fits comfortable in my hand. And I want to cut it off to basically that length, a little longer. So right about in here is where I'm going to make my next cut. Alright, I'm going to set these off to the side. I can use these to make knife handles or other pieces of equipment. Alright, this is the portion of the antler we're going to be using. This buck had a brow tine, so I'm going to have to cut this off. When I cut it off, I want to basically follow the edge, the contour of the main part of this handle right here and cut it off flush, because this is where we're going to be inserting our dowel rod, our long dowel rod for our ball starter. If your antler doesn't have a brow tine, then don't even worry about this step. Alright, here it is, the handle for our ball starter. We got a nice flat spot where we can drill into and attach our dowel rod, but if you don't have that, don't worry about it. You're still going to be able to drill through there. So now we got to go to the other part of the shop so we can start drilling in this thing. Alright, let's talk about the components of this ball starter here. Obviously, we have our deer antler, that's our handle. Then we have a 3/8 inch diameter dowel rod. This one's about 5 inches long and it extends down a little more than 4 inches. Then we have a shorter dowel rod. We cut to 1.25 inches up here, and both of these are capped with 9 by 19 millimeter casings. Now, the reason we're using casings on here is over the time you use this, just a regular dowel rod might splinter off or get worn down and might break. So we're capping them with brass casings. Alright, the reason we use brass casings here is because brass is known to be softer than most metals. So I would not recommend using a steel case to cap your end of your dowel rod, because the chances of marring the inside of your barrel become a lot greater. Now, 9 by 19 isn't the only caliber you can use. 3/8 inch dowel rod is roughly about 0.38 inches in diameter. So you could use a 380, ACP, 38 special, anything that fits onto this dowel rod you could use. You want it to be somewhat of a tight fitting. If you have to sand the end of the dowel rod a little bit to get the casing on there, that's fine. And that's what we had to do with the 9 mil casing here. Alright, this is our 3/8 inch dowel rod. I'm going to cut 2 pieces off. One's going to be 5 inches and one's going to be 1.25 inches. So I'm going to cut these off and I'll show you what to do with them next. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sand down our dowel rod. We're going to sand it down to where our casing can fit over the end. And this is a 3/4 inch long casing, this 9 by 19. So I want to sand down probably about 1/2 inch and just sand until I can slide it on there. Then I'm going to take a hammer and I'm going to hit it the rest of the way. But to secure it, before I hammer it, I'm going to put a drop of wood glue in there, and then I'll hammer it on there and then sand off any extra splinters that come up. We're going to do this on both pieces. Add our drop of wood glue. Sand it down to where it slides over. Then I'm going to take a hammer and I'm going to hit it on the rest of the way. Alright, I hit it on and you can see these little bitty burrs of wood that come up. Just take my sandpaper and get rid of them. Alright, we got both our casings on both our dowel rods here. Now, I left the primers in. These are for round balls. It's got a flat surface. Now, if you were shooting a sabot with like a polymer tip, such as this power belt here, what I would do is I would drill out the primer. And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you how that works. Alright, what I did was I inserted a dowel rod into the casing that we're going to drill out. I did this so whenever I put it in the vise and cinch it down, it doesn't crimp this casing shut so I can't get my dowel rod in it. Then we're going to take a rag or something to prevent any scratches or marring of this casing, and we're going to cinch it down in the vise. I'm using a 1/4 inch drill bit now. Alright, we got our hole drill. Now I want to take some sandpaper, get rid of any burrs on there. Then I want to take my sabot and fit it to the hole I just drilled. And my whole polymer tip is encased inside this casing, so this one's good to go. I got my brass touching the actual jacketing of my sabot. If yours doesn't fit, then just keep drilling until it does. Since we're using a 3/8 inch dowel rod, we're going to use a 3/8 inch drill bit. And we want to drill the same depth every time to ensure that we're going to mark with electrical tape onto this drill bit. And that depth is going to be 3/4 inches. So I'm going to measure 3/4 inches, mark it with my finger, and then I'm going to take some electrical tape and I want to wrap it onto that drill bit at that depth so I know when to stop. For this piece here, our long dowel rod, I'm going to drill right in the center of where I cut that brow tine off. Now for our shorter piece, I'm going to drill in that little circle. That's like the pith, and it's going to drill pretty easy. This you can do too. I'm going to put it in a drill press, but you can do this with a power drill in that bit, no problem. Alright, I just drilled 3/4 inches down. Now, I should have specified before, you want to make sure your antler's wide enough to go 3/4 inches. If it's not, then just back it up a little bit and drill about halfway through your antler. Something that you can still securely attach your dowel rods in. Alright, I just drilled 3/4 inches down. Now how this one's set up is the casing actually fits inside, the end of the casing is actually inside of here. So what I want to do now is I want to ream that outside edge because the casing is wider than 3/8 of an inch. Alright, now I'm going to insert my longer dowel rod, put some wood glue in there. I put a generous amount in here because I want it to come up through the top, and I want to ensure that it's going to hold this in place. So it's coming up through the top. I'm going to give it a little turn, make sure everything inside there gets coated, then I'm going to wipe the excess away. Now it's time for a short one, same process. Now on this one, we want to seat it to where the casing is inside of our antler. Now I'm going to wipe the glue away. There's our initial ball starter. You want it to stick out about 1/2 inch because this is your initial ball starter. You get it down the barrel, then you use this, shove it down a little more, then your ramrod. So I'm going to let this guy dry up. I got this one I made the other night, and we're going to show you how it works. One thing I recommend doing is treating this with some type of polyurethane or some type of sealer. And you want to make sure you get all the dirt and all the maybe bark shavings, if this buck was making any rubs, off of all these crevices in this antlers. You can use an old toothbrush or nylon bristle brush like this one right here. And what that'll do, it'll give it a nice shiny appearance and it'll protect it from the elements. This one in my right hand, I treated with polyurethane, so I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Alright, the first thing you want to do is add your powder. Alright, then you want to take your grease patch, center that over your muzzle, then take your ball, just like that. Alright, then we're going to use our initial starter of our ball starter, this short starter here. Put it on the ball, and you can either push or you can hit it down from the top. And that's going to get it about 1 inch in the barrel. Then you want to take your long starter and just push that down. And now your ball is 4 inches down the barrel. Alright, now that our ball is 4 inches down the barrel, this is going to ensure that we can use our ramrod with ease. You can start the ball up here with your ramrod, but you're going to have a harder time. So now it's here. When you use a ramrod, you don't want to grab like a foot up because this ramrod bends. And if the ball is hard to push down, you could end up breaking this ramrod, and chances are when you're pushing, it's going to come and get you. So you don't want that to happen. You want to stay moving about 6-inch increments and push it down the barrel, just like that. Seat it on the bottom, and the trick is to ensure that your ball is seated. You want to take your ramrod and throw it down, right? You want to throw it down till it bounces back, just like that. That means that the ball and the powder are seated tightly together. Now you can add your primer, and this is a cap lock muzzleloader, so I'm going to add my percussion cap, and this thing's ready to fire. That's how you make a ball starter out of a deer antler. Hope you guys liked the video. Catch you in a bit.